to get this. Thanks so much, everybody, for your patience. We were discussing some things and wanted to give a little bit of attention to Miss Halima, but how is everybody doing today? I'm happy we have some new faces here. I know Lisa and I have been communicating through Slack in regards to a specific patient, but um, wanted to see if there's anything pressing, if anybody has anything they would like to bring up and or new clients, if you'd like to introduce yourself or if you're just here listening in, we'd love to talk to you. But I'm going to give the open floor for a second while I pull up some stuff for Lisa. All right. Uh, Lisa, I'm trying to, how do I want to say this? Without saying names with this specific client, will you walk me through that? Maybe your check-in with her and what was happening with, and then maybe giving some oversight on that.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So, yeah, I have a client and she's currently on testosterone injections. She's using also an estradiol patch. She does have a history with a hysterectomy as well. And she's doing 2 days a week, 10 units each time. And she's just been having a lot of issues. Like she has the brain fog. She's got like, why did I go into this room? What am I doing? Having a lot of issues with like motivation and just the get up and go. I think she's been on this. I think she said I think it's 8 weeks. I'll have to double check how long she's been on it. But we were just talking about like, does her dosage need to be increased? I think she had a question regarding her dosaging. I think she'll take it up with First Optimal. But I think that was the question. And then also, she's not on any progesterone. And so that was something that I actually was like, does she need to kind of be on all of them to balance everything out? Just so then that way the testosterone and estrogen, I know estrogen it can promote growth. So I wasn't sure if, I don't know. It was a layered question, I think. So yeah.
No, that's a good question. I was looking at initiation of the medication. That was actually March 27th. So it takes about
It's a month. Okay.
6 to 8 weeks for saturation points with hormones. So it could be a progression coming into uh, having more adequate levels as she continues to use that. So she's still experiencing that, giving it some more time, and or she'll always need to refine it. All of us are different when we look at drug metabolism. So, I would say it is, I was just saying this earlier, it's a work in progress. We're all trying to fine tune things. You rarely get it right the first try, but time is probably the most important piece. I think you brought up a good question in regards to progesterone and taking it in conjunction with estradiol. You know, if you have a hysterectomy and you have no reproductive organ, the progesterone is mainly given just for symptoms. I see a lot of providers doing that. So it's just going to depend on, will it help her relax in the evening? Does it help with anxiety? The big thing with progesterone, it helps with vasomotor system. So anxious body, anxious mind, it can be helpful converting into allopregnanolone. But if you don't have any of your female reproductive parts, it's more of just an addition if you think it would be beneficial.
Okay. Good point. Okay.
Um, Yeah, tell her to definitely talk with the team at First Optimal and maybe like around week 8, week 10 if she's still not feeling better. Absolutely retest. I think a lot of times people set it and forget it, and you can't do that with anything. So you need to kind of be on top of doing diagnostics. First Optimal will help reach out and set a lot of those processes up.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Do I have anybody else, maybe some new faces, want to introduce yourselves or ask the coaches some questions? We have a specialist of every kind here. So we would love to hear from you.
What are all the areas of specialization that we have the benefit of today?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, well, we have Ashley. I'm not going to go first because I'm always talking. Ashley, if you'd like to maybe go in depth of what you specialize in and potentially uh, clients here who are maybe going through the deposit process or potentially onboarding, you can talk through what you do here.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, I'm Ashley. I am a registered dietitian and I'm also certified. I'm also a personal trainer. I am certified in functional nutrition and a gut specialist. So I do a lot of GI mapping and looking at microbiome and yeah, I don't know. I explore all the depths of functional medicine as best I can and trying to, get better and better at that as I age. So I don't know, that's me in a nutshell. Obviously, I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any, or if you have any direct questions about me.
Thank you so much. Charlotte, would you go?
Hello. Well, I wouldn't say I'm a super specialist, but I am a diehard fan of learning all things detox and opening drainage pathways, liver, colon, and just making sure that you're functioning really well on a baseline. And how can you improve that, as well as just doing all the lifestyle things from nutrition, exercise, just mental, emotional wellness. So yeah. I guess I would be the detox coach if we had to label anything.
I love your modesty. You're very good at what you do. Um, I'm just going to go down the line. Who's next for me? Sophie, if you wouldn't mind. Oh, we can't hear you.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yes, I had muted it because I kept hearing like the sound of the treadmill. Hey, I'm Sophie, or Sophia. I specialize, I guess, like if it's in terms of specialization, more fat loss, helping my clients in terms of mindset. I always explain that like this is not just about like nutrition and fitness, but really everything, every habit, behavior, emotion ends up affecting the habits that we take into this program as well. So it's more mindset. I help a lot of clients who have like bad relationships with themselves, with their body, with food, relationships, just everything that ends up affecting them moving forward in this process. Like if you find like that all or nothing mindset, just that like binge eating, emotional eating, all of those things, I would say is what I specialize in the most.
Awesome. Thank you. And Lisa? Coach Lisa, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Hey everyone, I'm Lisa. Let's see, specialize. It's hard to even say like what I specialize in. I do feel like a lot of, you get so much education from the clients I work with, from, all the experiences, but most of the education I do feel like has come from the things that I've dealt with personally. So, if I could go down the line of all the things that I've dealt with in, my health journey, Hashimoto's, thyroid issues, gut issues, blood sugar issues, and now, most recently, going into menopause. So I do feel like, I mean, we touch on all the things here. Every one of the coaches here do, I would say, specialize in everything because I feel like, anytime we get a new client that has something new, just learning about them and that sort of like, disorder or dysfunction really helps us become specialized. But yeah, all those things, I do feel really confident and comfortable talking about.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'm Justin. I do all the talking almost all the time. But I have worked in the HRT space for the past 5 years alongside several different doctors, now helping integrate Davy Moore Fitness with First Optimal. I've been a personal trainer since I graduated high school, so that's quite a long time ago. But really love to integrate the integrate functional health in with movement and nutrition. I really think that there's synergy there, and you can't do one without the other. I think this program kind of encompasses all of that with specializing in mindset and GI mapping. I see a lot of programs or even clinics kind of missing some of those avenues, being able to have somebody who kind of has their own little niche to a degree is super cool, and always learning from everybody here. So I'm thankful everybody is here to. Um, I have Lisa, our yes, she's right there. Sorry, there's too many faces here. Our health advisor. Lisa, have you had any questions that came up this week, maybe through your uh, findings with potential clients, maybe things that we can expand upon? I know we replay this video.
Yeah, the one thing that I wanted to mention to you is I had a client who mentioned that she had an eye stroke. And so as a result, she was told that she could not take testosterone. Am I correct?
Yeah,
Testosterone. Yeah, so BHRT, she said, was really not an option for her, and that scared her a little bit as a result of that. So she wanted to know how she would be able to do this without incorporating that. So I needed your expertise on that as far as regular hormone replacement therapy, which we know is synthetic, versus what this would do and if it would potentially cause any problems for this client.
yeah, I think that's a good question. The cool thing about this whole process is you will be screened by, a physician. So that's the first step is Hippocratic oath is do no harm. So they're going to do a good job reviewing all that. I think a lot of times when we get into hormones, endocrinology, hematologists, we have maybe an ophthalmologist having differing opinions or maybe not fully researching endocrinology and hormones, women health as a whole. So I think potentially hormones may have application. I think a lot of times delivery systems play a big role on that. So if we are taking something first pass, I bring this up quite a bit. It's one of the things, if you ever look at the birth control insert packet, it says risk for uh, increased clotting factors. So you could see potentially issues with oral estradiol, potentially injectable testosterone could be problematic for a person like that. Creams, maybe another delivery system for that individual. You're not going to have the same absorption rate. It won't be causing so much red blood cell production. Outside of just looking at hormones, what we do really good here as a whole is we're looking at foundational pieces. I think all the girls do a really good job talking about that. Is that without your nutrition, without your wake and sleep cycles, digestion, these hormones aren't going to help. So we're looking at it from top to bottom. And then if we're getting in hyper specific to her specific ailments, we want to make sure her metabolic health is good. She's managing blood sugar well. Uh, she's in a low inflammatory state. Hormones are somewhat balanced, including thyroid hormone, some snapshots of adrenal function on the blood test. It kind of gives us an idea through different things of areas we could work on for her. I think a lot of times people think just black and white of I just have to take these bioidenticals, but we're also different. So I would say that individual, if she was on the fence about it, at least looking at blood testing to see, is it more than just her main sex hormones? Is there other dysfunction happening? And I think that we could probably really expand upon those pieces even before getting into bioidentical hormones. Yeah,
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
absolutely. Halima, go ahead.
Could you clarify the relationship between the intake of protein and the hormones, as well as weight loss, but particularly the relation, the importance of protein, of how proteins function in relation to having some sort of hormonal balance?
Yeah, you know, kind of baseline stuff that I think about, and then I'll pass it around the room, see if we can expand on it, because a few things that come to my mind. I think really like with when we look at hunger signaling and hunger hormones, a big piece there if we're wanting to manage leptin and ghrelin, protein has a high satiety ratio rating there, so having adequate protein status is going to help balance that. It will stabilize blood sugar in conjunction with other foods. So I think that's a big thing. American culture, we're all snacking and grabbing stuff on the go, and like we probably aren't sitting down for well-rounded meals as much as we should be. So I think about fats, fiber, and protein all kind of sitting together. It's going to help with that blood sugar response quite a bit. Um, so I think that is going to play a huge role in body composition as well. When I'm looking through and getting to know a client, maybe reviewing blood work, I really want to pay attention to their glucose, their hemoglobin A1C, their fasting insulin, because you can manage so much just with dietary means with those things. Um, so those are a couple hormones. There's a ton of others. I don't know, Charlotte, Sophie, Ashley. Ashley's the registered dietitian. Maybe she can give us some more insight. Also, yeah, I'm just gonna stop there and let one of them pick up.
Yeah, I mean, he hit the nail on the head on a lot of it. I mean, the biggest thing, protein is it supports production and transportation and function of so many different hormones in the body. It's just important for them to like process and work optimally, basically. So, you know, with insulin, with glucagon, your blood sugar balance, which you mentioned, with your thyroid hormones, to help you regulate metabolism, protein influences that. It influences your dopamine and your serotonin. So, you know, I mean, this more Justin's area, but like just estrogen metabolism and progesterone synthesis. We need protein for all of that. So I always, I guess, dumb it down and say we need protein for all the processes in our body, just because it has such an influence on how, like, those amino acids, like protein broken down in those amino acids are what is helping convert and metabolize and transport and talk and all those hormones to talk to each other. So really it's just up regulating the whole process. But on so many different levels, like I said, on the blood sugar, on metabolism through thyroid, on your hormone production and ultimately balance. And then, you know, other than that, we get to preserve muscle mass and increase our you know, metabolism that way, and, you know, fat burning at rest sort of thing. It also helps like other hormones like melatonin and serotonin and GABA and all the things that are going to help with sleep. And sleep is so important for like rest and recovery and, you know, like all, you know, for our body to basically heal itself from the day or whatever. And
Can you ever
so,
have too much? I mean, is there a point where there's,
yeah, that's a great.
can you ever have, like, my issue is not too much. That's not my issue. That's my goal. You know, Charlotte and I have a goal. So we're working on this goal and I'm getting the protein up, but you know, I mean, is there ever too much? And you know, I want to balance. I don't want to have too much animal protein. I don't want to have too much. I just want to have good protein and
Yeah,
conscious of. But is there ever too much? Like, what
sure.
are the thresholds or
Yeah.
signs of too much?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lots and lots of theories of like how much protein is appropriate for, but it also depends on your goals. So like fat loss is one thing, muscle building is another. The biggest thing, and this is a little bit dietitian brain, but also I think it's also statistically true, is kidneys. That's where it goes, because ultimately you're not able to absorb. There is a threshold for what you'll be able to absorb and utilize. And so once you're, and that's not an exact science. There are a lot of math calculations to show that. And we could go down a long rabbit hole of that, but generally speaking, yes, if you have too much, then the excess essentially is expensive urine, right? So that it comes out through your urine, but it's processed through your kidneys. So, you know, if you don't have kidney damage, it's not like you're going to like suddenly have kidney damage and your kidneys are going to shut down sort of thing. That's not usually how it works. If somebody does have kidney issues, then yeah, absolutely. Like, and I have had clients who, or maybe they have a kidney or they have kidney issues, then absolutely, then we hold it back there. But generally speaking, I think it requires a little bit of real specific effort to push it that hard, but absolutely. I mean, that's where I first go is just kidney health and absorption. Like, are you actually going to utilize it? Now, there's also the argument that like if you're not going to utilize it, it's still crowding out potentially other things, right? So I think there's a balance there of like kind of hovering around that edge if you have healthy kidneys. But that's the biggest thing is just but then it also can go the other way. So like I said, it crowds out other things. So potentially you're crowding out too much carbs and too much fats, but you could also do it the other way where you crowd it out too much and your body needs more fat or more fiber or whatever that case may be. So yeah.
The only other question I want to
Go ahead.
ask you is, so, you can have protein shakes and then you can have protein that you masticate, whether it's vegetables or chicken or meat or whatever. Um, is one or more is I always like to do a balance and take the middle course for everything because it's like when you're looking, you want to have peripheral vision. If you're looking straight, you can sort of see everything. But I just wanted to know collectively the thoughts about a combination of both types of proteins, or is one better than another, or just since we're talking about proteins and hormones, but
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll answer first and then I'll let somebody else talk. I mean, I'm always of the mindset if you can get it from whole food, please do. Like if it can come from an animal or the earth, absolutely. It's less processed. It's, whatever. You have more control over what, I mean, within within reason, right? Like how they raise the animals or whatever. But you have more control over what it is. Also, it's typically more nutrient dense. So you typically have more vitamins and minerals and iron and B12 and fats and fiber specifically from the whole food. So you get like a bigger bang for your buck sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, but also I think sometimes to get enough protein, depending on your hunger or convenience. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing I think of with protein powder. It's a convenience and or I need to get more protein, but gosh, I can't eat any more chicken sort of thing, right? Like, and there's other ways to balance that in terms of not wanting like eat 2 pounds of chicken, like you can mix proteins. And so I always like that too, to hit protein is to mix proteins, like a salad with chicken and edamame or, chicken and black beans or whatever, get it that way. But yeah, I mean, big picture, I'm always like, if you can get it from Whole Foods, please do. But I think there's definitely benefit to the convenience and even like satiety factors of using a powder.
I will give my 2 cents. I think I agree, like to 100%. I think more in the micronutrient status, but there is protein rating scales where they'll rate whey versus egg whites, and whey protein and egg whites are going to have like a like 95 or 98% bioavailability. Really, I think that I wouldn't hone in on um, trying to have the most optimal forms of protein and just really look at it over a 24-hour period. I think a balance of everything makes a lot of sense. But to Ashley's point, really dialing in on the micronutrient status. Not everybody can consume a lot of red meat for digestive reasons, financial reasons. There's a bunch of different reasons. So I think about trying to do as much animal product as you can. I'm not against red meat. I will definitely consume that, but I think a variety of things. I like small fish. I like wild game. I really think if you can have access to wild game, venison, elk, stuff like that, that's probably what I eat most of. Would be ground bison if I'm going to consume red meat, just because it's not touched. It's very pure as far as what it's fed, no grain. So I'm not a huge stickler on that, especially if finance comes down to a reason. We want the lesser evil. So I say like, hey, if you have to have a lower quality beef instead of going to McDonald's and having a cheeseburger, please do the lower quality beef. Like you don't have to do the super expensive stuff if budget is a reason. So those are my 2 thoughts. I don't know other coaches if we missed anything.
I was gonna add in too that like sometimes like protein powders, especially like some plant protein powders, and this is coming from somebody who is more plant-based. I do have some animal products and everything as well. I've been adding in a little bit more, but they tend to not be complete proteins as well. Sometimes they only focus on a couple of the amino acids that complete the proteins and everything. like if you are going to do a plant protein powder, doing like pea protein with brown rice is a good mix, usually more complete as well. So it's just things to be aware of. And especially now when like I go to the supermarket, there's a lot of marketing towards high protein. And it's just something to be aware of that like most of these times, like I saw one that was like chicken breast and it said like, and I was like high protein chicken breast. And I'm like, really? Like it's just being aware that we can buy into these like marketing things. And it's just most of the time, like these protein bars and stuff like that, like they're good to have for when you're on the go. You need something quick, you need something accessible and such. But like Ashley and Justin said, like always focusing on the whole foods is always going to be the best option. But like knowing that protein powder and those things are supplements, something to help supplement your diet, not something to rely on. I'll have protein powder maybe twice or three times a week, if that. But most of the times, focusing on your proteins, you can do like there's a lot of plant proteins. I know that you mentioned like doing like a mix of them. There's obviously like tofu, tempeh. There's this other soy-free tofu that's from Big Mountain, and it's made from fava beans as well, edamame, wheat gluten if you can do gluten. Um, so it's definitely like, finding your balance and finding what works for you as well. But it definitely focusing more on that and knowing that like protein powder and such are just to supplement your meals as well. And also looking for good quality protein powders because there's also a lot that just have a lot of extras in them that aren't the best for us either. So if you can find like third party tested ones, those are going to be the better options of them.
Good additions. I have a couple questions here in our chat that I'd like to expand upon. So I have Erica here. Hi, just joining in. I'm 47, definitely in perimenopause based on E2 and E1 levels. But I also have endometriosis and fibroids. Can you still prescribe bioidentical E on progesterone OTC, already doing luteal phase, wild EM base? That's a really good question. I think a lot of health coaches, HRT clinics, they will really try to hone in and try to balance that E2 to progesterone ratio. And yes, I do think that that's important. But when I look at proliferation of tissue in the endometrium or reproductive organs, a lot of times excess estrogen can cause additional blood flow and hyperplasia of the endometrium. So I would probably ask Erica, hey, you should probably look at potentially phase 1 through 3 of estrogen metabolism. I would almost guarantee there's an issue there. Specifically with fibroids, you could potentially have an upregulation of something called CYP3A4. That's a liver enzyme. I'm sorry, it's an enzyme in the liver that is responsible for aromatase and the hydroxylation piece of estrogen metabolism. Women with fibroids and endometriosis, excuse me, tend to have quite a bit of that. So I would start there with you. Make sure you're detoxifying everything appropriately. Then I think potentially progesterone probably very helpful for you. Um, if you've got a lab showing you're in perimenopause, you also need to look at your LH and FSH, and you want to be able to catch that mid-luteal. You potentially may have done that. But those are kind of the big pieces. I would look at your estrogen metabolisms, look at inflammation status, maybe autoimmune status as well, specifically with the endometriosis. I can see some immune-based aspects happening there for a lot of women. May not be a case for you, but that's kind of where my mind goes. Um, I'm sure, Charlotte, do you have anything in regards to endometriosis, fibroids, potentially from like a detoxification, immune-based status, anything that you'd like to add in there?
Well, coming from that history myself, it's been an ongoing journey to understand how to manage it. Um, I know for what I'm seeing now, just going into parasite cleansing, it has helped me tremendously to manage the symptoms that come with all the pain and the uncomfortability, the cyst bursting. They couldn't tell me whether I had endometriosis or PCOS. It's like this flip middle part because I think the symptoms are so similar. Um, but definitely, I think lowering the sugar in the diet. I went keto for a while, and that really helped bring me out of like constant horrific pain. But it has crept back just a little bit when over the years, if I'm not doing a really low sugar diet. So there's a couple of things in my head that kind of show me like, what am I feeding? And what am I not killing off? And what are my detox pathways doing? So there's a lot more work to be uncovered there, as you know, because I'm on my own journey of like really cleaning out my pathways, my liver, my colon, um, and then continuing to be a little bit more lower carb seems to work best for me for whatever extra sugar is feeding. So I think it's a gray area. I think a lot of people have different opinions on how to take care of endometriosis and fibroids. My question is, what is the source of growth for those things? What is actually causing those things to grow in our bodies? Um, so I don't know if this really answered the question so much as look to your detox pathways, start there, start cleaning them out, very important, and then look to possible parasite cleansing in the long term. I don't think any of this is going to be taken care of one and done. I think it's going to be like a long-term process of cleaning out and killing off to see then what your symptoms are in the long term. Depending on the other caveat is depending on how serious or what stage of endometriosis or fibroid, that also matters. Like, you know, how long have you had it? So hopefully this is, I guess, words for thought, since I'm on the journey of taking care of my body in that way as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's super helpful. I always like to have the other insight. I want to go to Ashley if she is available to talk maybe about beta glucuronidase and the upregulation of that and potential issues with uh, elimination of hormones. I see before Ashley, the one last piece I wanted to see, you have a CYP1B1 SNP. So CYP1 1B1 can potentially be carcinogenic as well. So you look at issues with DNA damage if you're not able to detoxify that through glutathione. Really, what you look at, if you are familiar with 3A4, 1B1, and oh my goodness, because I'm on the spot, I can't remember the last one, but there's a more protective pathway when we look at hepatic processes of estrogen metabolism, being in a low inflammatory standpoint, maybe using some sort of sulforaphane, I3C, potentially dim if your estrogens are really high. It sounds like yours are potentially low based off of your E2 and E1. But I also think looking at beta glucuronidase in a GI map, potentially some reasons that could be important. And Ashley, if you'll talk about dysbiotic bacterias and the upregulation of beta glucuronidase, I think that would be helpful because I never really understood that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of simplify it a little bit, but basically, so beta glucuronidase, it's an enzyme, and it basically it conjugates with like hormones and glucuronic acid in the gut, basically, and it's a process that happens in phase 3 detoxification of the body. It reactivates estrogens and other toxins that may have already been processed by the liver. So when beta glucuronidase is too high, it reactivates those hormones and estrogen, and it gets reabsorbed into circulation. So I kind of jumped there first, but basically microbiome. So when we do a GI map, we look at the hormones in the GI tract, and so we look at your healthy or commensal bacteria, and then we also look at opportunistic bacteria. So bacteria that, I mean, there's a couple that we like to have at low levels, but for the most part, we don't necessarily need, and we don't want them overgrown. And so when we have them overgrown, it's more likely to kind of trigger that beta glucuronidase, that enzyme, to go high. And then we're reabsorbing these toxins and hormones, which can impact that hormone balance overall. So hormone buildup, specifically estrogen, more so than any others, but creating estrogen dominance. And as you know, estrogen dominance, or maybe not know, but estrogen dominance has a lot to do with fibroids and PMS symptoms and all of that. So that, is a potential piece of it. So when we have that dysbiosis or overgrowth, that's linked to that high beta glucuronidase. Other things in that correlate with that gut balance is fiber. So if you're not having enough fiber, that impacts that balance, which in turn secondary can impact that the height of beta glucuronidase, or how much you have. Similarly with that, like constipation, which also can come with overgrowth. So certain bacteria can kind of trigger constipation, but with constipation, just think about your body's trying to eliminate waste, and then that waste is sitting in the tract, and then it's reabsorbing a lot of your waste. So you're reabsorbing things that your body's trying to get rid of. But any of that impacts that balance, and consequently can impact the growth of fibroids and and hormone balance and excretion of that.
That's super helpful. I appreciate that. Erica, I don't know if it was by accident, but you unmuted your phone. So if you'd like to, for us to go further, if you have any questions, we'd love to talk to you about it. If not, we can go on to the next question. All right, so I have Emily's question here. Are there any foods or supplements that you recommend for strains and overall ligament tendon health? Does somebody want to take that, and we all can expand on that? I have a couple ideas.
I feel like I'm talking a lot today, but I mean, I'll talk about the vitamins. They can come from supplements or food, but basically, like collagen's the first one I think of. Collagen's great for that. I also think of omega-3s to reduce any inflammation. I think of vitamin D. Vitamin D is just great for a lot of processes in the body in general, but specifically, I think about it for muscle tissue and muscles and tissue, like regeneration and stuff like that. And then I also think of magnesium, just because that helps with like connective tissue. Anyway, those are my top ones.
Yeah, I would say I would agree with you on all of those things. I think a lot about maybe some potential peptides. If we're looking maybe outside of traditional supplements or foods, BPC 157 is really cool. It'll help with the angiogenesis and specific ligaments or tendons. So if you have a torn ligament, tendon, this will really expedite the process. There's several of these, TB 500. You can get most of these pharmaceutical grade from telehealth clinics. I like those. I think other things to just consider is potentially hormone status. So estrogen in the production of collagen. I'm not sure of how old you are, Emily, but that would also be an important thing just to keep in your mind. If you're in reproductive years, maybe less of concern, and then maybe look at some of the strategies Ashley's talking about, some of the things I'm talking about. But if you are peri or postmenopausal, yeah, I think most definitely it would make sense to do that. So you are on estrogen and progesterone. Okay. Yeah. Are you other questions, Emily, I would have for you is like, are you monitoring your labs? Is that through your PCP? What's the delivery methods? If you're not too shy, you're more than welcome to unmute, and we'd love to talk to you.
Hi, sorry, I'm at work.
No problem.
Not supposed to be doing this. I have gone through MIDI because my OB doesn't believe in any of it. So I'm on the patch for estrogen, and I'm on the pill for progesterone.
Okay.
But I have
Um,
a really bad strain in my buttocks, which is driving me insane.
yeah, I would say if you're getting it through some sort of health clinic, med spa, whatever, the peptides are super helpful. So
Okay.
BPC 157, 30 days of that will really speed up healing for you. I use it pretty regularly. There's oral forms and injectable forms. The injection is best for muscle. Super helpful. So I'd consider that.
Great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Can I add to that piece of inflammation in joints and back? I've struggled a lot with lower back pain while I displaced a disc, but on top of that, so I already had some trauma to it. But other than that, last year I had a lot of hip pain and it would show up in the middle of the night, just horrendous. I move my leg, my hip really hurts. And after I did one advanced liver cleanse, the next day that hip pain didn't return. I did not have that anymore. So I do think again, when you go back to, and a lot of other pains in my fingers and stuff left too, when you go back to just like the baseline of your organs functioning and being able to detoxify and getting the minerals and the vitamins where they need to go so that your body can actually properly restore and heal and rebuild, it makes a huge difference. That's just one avenue. I'm not saying it's going to work for everyone, but that's just my personal anecdotal, I guess, scientific experience. Honestly, I thought that was really, really fascinating. And actually, the hip pain actually came on when I had really high liver enzymes. So something happened between the inflammation of when I was going through a rough period to actually transferring or storing, I don't know, whatever it was. I wasn't in my hip understanding why I was having pain or why I was inflamed, but after clearing out, all that went away. So I thought that was fascinating, and maybe somebody could glean from that and chew on that one.
So
So,
cool. Thank you.
mhm.
Uh, Lisa, I see that you raised your hand. Love to answer a question for you.
Yeah, Charlotte, do you have a go-to cleanse that you do for your liver? Like, and when are you, do you do it, like in the spring and the fall when they say we should do those things, or do you have a go-to?
Yeah, I think there's quite a few different people saying different things. I think I would go off your intuition, honestly. They say Andreas Moritz, who's like the father of the advanced olive oil cleanse, says do a cleanse every 4 weeks until you see no more than 15 stones come out. There's other people that will say do it seasonally, like you just said, Lisa, spring, fall, winter, whenever there's that seasonal change. I have not done it every 4 weeks because I am a very sensitive detoxer, I'm realizing. So it may not be for everyone, and that's where it's nice to just kind of go with your body and make sure you feel somewhat balanced before you go and do these more advanced styles of cleansing. I think that's really important. But they do make a good radical shift. And I won't say with these advanced cleanses, everyone has an amazing experience afterwards. Sometimes you have healing health crises. You don't feel good initially until you do a few more. And some people feel like me significantly better. So I think just keeping an honest, open conversation of what you're stepping into when you start to really move out some of this, I guess, deep toxicity that's been sitting in your body for years.
Okay. And like, do you do like that standard one of olive oil, Epsom salts? Is it that one that you do?
I actually did the one by Zen cleanse. You don't have to actually use Epsom salts, which I like because they can be a little bit
Okay.
tough on the kidneys and
Mhm.
tough. And some people feel fine when they do it, and others are like, "Oh, I don't feel good." So I've seen people do different ones. I just didn't do the one with Epsom salts. But there's a company called Zen Cleanse that does it that
Okay.
you could do without.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions we can answer for clients? Want to
I
go?
have a question. I think it'll be good. It'll be pertain to one person here. So when you have a history of vegan and vegetarian style eating, and you're trying to introduce more meats in, what can happen? Could it be uncomfortable? What might you do to support the journey since your goal is to eat more protein? And all the different facets that come with that to make the journey seem, I guess, more understandable. Because there is a little bit of I've seen in history when people are coming from that, it's hard to eat more animal protein. It's just, doesn't feel that great, feels kind of heavy. So I'd love to get all the coaches' input on that and kind of what your experience is with that crossover.
Absolutely. So I probably eat on the upper threshold of protein than most people, just kind of based off of what I'm doing for building muscle, something that I think is important. So you can't overdo protein. You know, protein becomes very expensive glucose at a certain point of time. Your body will turn it into, through gluconeogenesis, convert those amino acids into glucose. So is upper thresholds. Things that I would think would be very similar to someone coming from a more plant-based diet into an animal-based diet. You could see some shifts in stomach acid. A couple pieces play a role in that. Age is going to be a big piece. As we get older, our stomach acid does deplete to a degree. Protein requires a lot of stomach acid. So that's biofeedback I would want from a client if I'm working on slowly increasing protein is anything sitting heavy in your gut? Are you belching? Do you have any, any issues with digestion? Because it could be enzymatic, where you may need more pancreatic enzymes or things like biotin HCl to help assimilate that protein. So there could be some changes in digestion. If fiber is not adequate and hydration and sodium, constipation could be other things, acid reflux. But really, those things could be mitigated, or you may not experience them at all if you're giving your coach that feedback on a weekly basis. Oh, there was one other thing I was going to go with on protein. I think those are the big things for me is you could potentially see that and um, yeah, other coaches. I'd love to hear everybody else's thoughts. Those are the few that I can scramble right now.
I can chip in the terms of like, because I've gone from completely plant-based to, and I've changed a couple of times. And I've seen like the effects that it's had on my body and everything. And I do believe that a plant-based diet can be beneficial for some people, but I definitely did start to see it affecting me in some negative ways. So I started to implement, and I think ways that worked for me, because I did at one point, like this was several years ago, I started eating like red meat after not having any like animal protein in a long time, and it did not sit well with me at all. This time when I started incorporating it, I started with just adding in egg whites first, and then I started with like whole eggs. Then I did like whitefish, so like mahi mahi and stuff like that. But like just slowly incorporating, I think could be something that can be very helpful as well. Because like Justin was saying, it's also like I think like red meat is something that's like very, very heavy to digest and everything. I haven't incorporated in red meat either yet, but being able to take it slowly and like add in small portions. And also, like Ashley had mentioned before, I think maybe doing combinations of it. So maybe you do some chicken with some edamame, and like that way you can start to incorporate it, see how you feel and everything as well. I've noticed benefits of just like my own energy levels, my own skin, and stuff like that since incorporating in more because I am like this is where I on a plant-based diet. I'm very aware of like my proteins and health and all of that. So like that's been my own personal experience. But I think just like, starting off with like the ones that are maybe easier to digest and then little by little incorporating in could be something better as well.
Yeah, I'll second that. I've done both. And I also think like different, and this goes down a pathway that not everybody believes, but like blood type, I think kind of can influence how your body digests certain foods or what it needs. And so anyway, I've been fully plant-based before. And I mean, the resounding thing I will say is just slow. Go slow and listen to your body. Because inevitably, I would say I'd be hard pressed to find somebody who went from completely plant-based to adding in animal proteins without a little digestive like wake up or like, hello, what are we doing here? But that doesn't mean it's all bad. If that is something that either your body needs or wants. Like, so for me specifically, I was very, I became anemic in the plant based, and I was very intentional about getting plant based iron sources, but I wasn't absorbing them as well. And, like I said, down a whole other pathway here, but I am type O, which is a higher protein blood type. So if into that sort of thing. Um, and so, anyway, something I had to discover. But I think, like Justin said, the stomach acid is a big piece of it. And then, like Sophie said, choosing, I think, easier ones. And also another thing I will say is digestive enzymes are amazing. So utilizing some digestive enzymes, really, if you're incorporating any food that you're not used to eating, but specifically ones that are possibly more sensitive to digestion, and even just as a preemptive thing, like I'm just going to take a digestive enzyme with this new food to just help the body digest it a little better as it's relearning that food and how to break that up.
Thank you so much. Um,
Can I share something?
sure.
Um, you know, like many of you, I've tried, I've just naturally, I was raised as a vegetarian, but at the same time, uh, we at the same time we'd have eggs or we'd have chicken every so often or fish. Um, and uh, and then I didn't eat red meat until I became pregnant, actually. So something happened and I went outside and I smelled somebody grilling and my um husband was an avid hunter, so I was only going to eat the venison because I knew where he got it. And I knew that, that it was fine. And I found that when I tried that, it was fine and it digested really easy, as well as bison, as well as ostrich, and all those kinds of things. Um, but I don't eat those things regularly, but when I eat it, my body responds, I guess in the way that traditional hunters and gatherers would when they would get that kind of food, so to speak. Um, when I don't eat beef, and I will have lamb for religious reasons twice a year. And, so my body, didn't go crazy, but I will eat eggs. My concern with regard to the whole food, which is really the biggest challenge, I think, is that so much of our food source, there are problems. So I love fish and seafood, but so much of it has plastics in it. So, but I still need to get the protein. So I'm just I can't overthink it because we still need these nutrients, but trying to balance it out and for all the reasons that you've stated, like what the body needs. Um, but I just wanted to say that I think that in my experience, it's like each decade, your body shifts and changes. And so I think as women, we should always, and as people, just pay attention to where we are. It doesn't mean that's where we're going to be all the time. Our whole biorhythm, our sleep patterns, our energy, everything shifts, and there's different types of normal and comfort. I mean, something like okra, I can't stand okra. But now I'll make okra water because of its benefits. you know, but it's not like eating it. So it's like, who would have thought that I would have done that? So I just share that just because in all of our journeys, it's a process, and as we're evolving, we get to another step for another plateau for new realization. So now I'm, as I mentioned earlier, going through a whole different relationship with protein, which is
I can relate a lot with you in terms of what you were explaining right now. So I know where you're coming from.
so, but it's okay. I mean, that's the main thing. I think it's all okay. But this is definitely an adventure, sort of like mountain climbing.
Yes, that's a good
I,
analogy. All right, ladies, because I believe I'm the only male here. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. I look forward to seeing most of you, or whoever can join next week will be same time. Same place. Actually, as far as place, I'm going to change this link. I have my links messed up here, so I will give it a new link out. So thank you everybody so much. I hope everybody has a great day and take care.